Hello, welcome once again to Stuff and Things, where I like to talk about stuff and occasionally even things. I'm your good friend Bradley, and today the iPhone X is out. But unless you are one of the lucky / crazy people who braved the horrible pre-order process or waited in line at an Apple store on launch day, you probably don't have one. I did manage to grab one. This is the 256GB version in silver. I've been using it for a few days now, and I would like to tell you what I think. So let's do it. The iPhone X comes in a box that says iPhone on the side. That way you know that you're buying an iPhone. This one actually says 256 gigs on the back. I don't really see the point of the 64 gig model. I really think it should have been 128 and 256. And the 256 is $150 more. So this was $1149 for the 256 gig version. The box is pretty snazzy though. There's even a little raised section here, and there's actually some sheen where it represents the stainless steel band on the new phone. But anyway, you're not that interested in the box. I already opened this anyway. You get your normal Apple documentation. You get the phone right here. You get the normal USB wall adapter. And then I've already removed the headphones here. And as we all know, there's no headphone jack now on the iPhone ever since the 7. But they do include a pair of headphones with the lightning connector. We could all wish that that were USB-C, but again, Apple goes with a proprietary plug and then your normal charge sync cable. So nothing exciting, nothing very new in the box. If we look at the design of the phone itself though, very much like the 8 and 8 Plus, it is a glass back and glass front design. This has these nice stainless steel bands though. The 8 and 8 Plus have aluminum, so the stainless steel is going to be a little stronger, also probably much more prone to scratching, but with stainless steel you can buff that out if you wish. On the back we see the dual camera system here. Both of these cameras are optical image stabilized, so both the wide angle and the telephoto. That's different from the 8 Plus. You get a little bit of an upgrade here with the 10, and I think it has a slightly larger aperture as well, so a little bit better in low light. On the back just says iPhone, has the Apple logo, and then there it is, there's the screen. Let me see if I can unlock this. So we have the 5.8-inch display, and of course the famous notch at the top there. So they say bezel-less, there's still a bezel around. I don't really mind that it's not completely edge to edge. There's some Galaxy phones that I've used where you're holding the phone and you're obstructing the screen because your fingers have to purchase on something. And if it's all screen, then what are you holding on to? I don't know. Anyway, I think the design is quite fancy. If we compare it to, I've got my old 6 here. This is what I've been upgrading from. Let me take the case off. You can see the size difference between the 10 and the 6. It's just a little bit taller than the 6, and it is slightly wider as well. So just a little bit larger footprint than the 6. To me, this is really the Goldilocks size for a cell phone, for a smartphone. The 6 is maybe just a little bit small. I appreciate having a little bit more screen real estate on the 10, but it's still small enough that I can still do everything one-handed. I can reach up and do the control center. I can still grab my notifications if I want to. To me, I have larger hands than most people. You might notice that. You can see the size of the phone compared to my hands. Large monster freak hands. So for me, this phone is not in any way outsized. I have reachability. You can do the reachability gesture like you can on the 8 Plus, but I don't need it. I never use it. I just do everything with one big fat thumb. When comparing to my venerable old 6, which has seen over 3 years of very hard use, this phone was getting pretty clunky and pretty slow. The 10 seems extremely quick, but you're getting basically the same processor in this that you're getting in the 8 and 8 Plus, so that's not much of an upgrade. And a lot of apps for the 10 haven't been completely optimized for it yet, so you'll probably be getting even more speed dividends in the future, but for right now, you're not going to notice much of a difference between the 8 or 8 Plus in terms of daily use. Where these new phones for Apple really shine, the 8, the 8 Plus, and the 10, is in just raw processing power. Doing Geekbench scores, the A11 processor just blows away the competition right now. It doesn't necessarily translate to real-world use right now, but probably in the future, as people develop more apps specifically to take advantage of that, you will see more of a difference. iOS 11 was super buggy when it first came out, but using it on the 10, I haven't had any problems at all. Now, what about all the new gestures and everything? So, as we see here, there used to be a home button. There isn't a home button anymore. So the 7, the 7 Plus, the 8 Plus still have a home button. The 10 does not. So what have you got? What do you use to get back to home? So if we lock the screen, let's first use the Face ID. I'm gonna try to sort of do this through the tripod though. So I'm kind of looking at my phone right now. I have tap to wake. I don't have raise to wake enabled right now because I just prefer that. So I tap the phone, look at the phone, slide up, and it's unlocked. It's that quick usually. To me, it's just as quick or maybe just slightly slower than the fingerprint ID, and I haven't had any issues with it whatsoever. You do have to be looking at the phone fairly head-on, and I also have attention aware selected, so you actually have to be looking at the phone for it to unlock. You can have that off, so you could be more at an oblique angle and don't actually have to be making, I guess, eye contact with your phone. But I prefer the attention aware, and I haven't had any problems in the dark, in bright sunlight. I haven't been in super bright sunlight because I live in the Pacific Northwest and it's been snowing and really crappy weather here. So I haven't been on a really, really sunny day to see what that's like for Face ID, but so far it's been fine. So, with the help of my pitch black bathroom and my infrared mode on this camcorder here, you'll be able to see that when you use FaceTime on the iPhone X, your face is actually being flooded with infrared light. And that's what it's using to read that 3D map that you've already stored in the phone. You can't see it, obviously, in daylight, but this infrared light will pick it up. And that's also why Face ID works in pitch black. Now, I'm not looking at the phone as I touch the screen, so it's going to have to flash me a few times, but as soon as I move my eyes over to the phone, because I have the attention aware feature on, it will be able to unlock. Flooding, flooding, looking, unlocking. There you go. New gestures that you're going to have to learn with the iPhone X. Let's open up an app here. We have Files, iCloud Drive. So there's no home button anymore, so to return to home, you just flick up and you go home. To me, it took maybe, I don't know, half a day of using this for me to stop pressing my finger where I thought the home button was going to be. To me, it's just really intuitive. It's like you're flicking the app away. You open up Maps, bam, it's gone, you're back home. To me, it seemed perfectly fine. The control center is now on the upper right, so you sweep from the upper right hand, you get control center. That might be a little less intuitive. I am very much used to just flicking up from the bottom, but now that's the home screen. So you can reach up. I can do it one-handed pretty much. Some people might have to use their other finger. And then your notifications are going to be up here. So if you flick down from the left, those are going to be your notifications. Control center, notifications. And they have the notifications as like an overlay, and the control center just sort of different animations. I'm not sure exactly why they did that, but I guess I don't mind. Multitasking is now accomplished by just flicking up and holding, and that opens up this little interface here. And if you want to delete an app or close an app, you don't really ever need to do that, but if you want to, you just hold on it. These little minuses will appear and you can close. You can also, if from within an app, just swipe down at the bottom. You can see this little bar. If you swipe that, you can go between your open apps. And then again, flick to go home. To me, it's all pretty intuitive. In fact, I think it's actually more intuitive on a device where you're mostly going to be using gestures anyway. It's actually more intuitive, I think, to only use gestures than to use a home button. So it took me less than half a day to really adjust to just flicking up to go home, getting the multitasker going. Control center took a little bit longer. Maybe I still had so much muscle memory for that, but wasn't bad. And then again, your notifications there. On the notification screen, you also have a flashlight icon and your camera icon. So if you do 3D touch, a firm press, you can open each of those apps from the notification screen. Again, with the flashlight, very bright flashlight this time around. But then those are also available if you put the widget on through your control center. But you also have the ability to just swipe, I think, yes, swipe from the right to get the camera as well. So you have several options for that. Speaking of the camera, I haven't done a whole lot with it yet, but I've taken a few test photos, a few little videos, and so far I'm pretty impressed. Especially having upgraded from the 6. The camera was decent on the 6, but I guess the 8 and 8 Plus are pretty much the same as the 10, but the 10 you do get that dual optical image stabilization, which does make a big difference with the telephoto lens on the back, and then a slightly larger aperture, a little bit better low light performance, and then the ability to record 4K at 60 frames a second. There's some high-end cameras that don't have that ability, so pretty snazzy there. I think I might do a video in the future where I'm just looking at the cameras and all the different modes. Let me know if you'd like to see that. Siri can now be accessed through a click of the side button. This is no longer the power button, this is the side button. It's a little bit larger on the 10 now. So you hold it down. I see a little silhouette of a man.
Scaramouche, will you do the fandango? Thunderbolt and lightning, very, very frightening me. Galileo.
Oh my God.
Galileo Figaro Magnifico.
Just keeps going.
I'm just a poor assistant. Nobody loves me.
Holy shit.
It's just a poor assistant from a poor family. Spared its life from
a
this
poor assistant? Is that the actual lyric?
Easy come, easy go. Will you let me go?
Okay.
No.
All right, Siri.
We will not let you go.
Thank you.
Let it go.
Siri.
We will not let
That's enough now, Siri. Okay, you know the lyrics to Bohemian Rhapsody. That's fine. Okay, Siri. Siri, shut up. Siri, shut. Siri, Siri, Siri. So there you go. Siri works just like that. Now to power off the phone, you hold down on the volume down button, or you just hold the volume down button and you hold the side button, and then you have your options here, your medical ID, emergency SOS, power off. To do a screenshot, you now go the up volume button and the side button. And now when you have a screenshot, you get this little interface here. You can draw on it, you can crop it, you can do whatever you want. What other changes would there be with the 10 compared to the 8 and 8 Plus? There are a lot of changes that are just, you know, in iOS 11, so if you have an older device, you might already be experiencing these anyway. So just to give you a little example of what you're going to be dealing with when watching video content on this phone. So the aspect ratio of most videos are going to be in 16:9. That's pretty standard. So with a 16:9 video, it's going to fill the width of your screen already, and it's going to be letterboxed on the sides. If you want, you can pinch and hold to fill the entire screen, but you are losing a little bit of real estate on the top and bottom, as you can see there. But if you want that real full screen experience, there you go. And there's the notch. It's right there. I don't know. I don't find it really that distracting at all. I don't normally watch things completely in full screen because I want them to have the actual aspect ratio that they should have. So I don't mind there being a little letterbox on the sides. It's basically like having bezels on your phone, but for a lot of these longer kind of narrow phone screens that we're seeing now, that's sort of what you're dealing with. They don't really match a lot of normal aspect ratios. I guess it's almost closer to cinema widescreen than it is to 16:9, but like I said, you can pinch and fill if you want. A word about the screen though. This is my first time ever having an OLED screen, and I have to say it's really, really pretty. It's not going to come through on this video very well, but it's really nice. It has a 1,000,000:1 contrast ratio. Apparently Apple, even though they sourced their screens from Samsung, really calibrated and sort of fine-tuned it themselves. They claim that it is less prone to burn-in than most OLED displays. That's one thing to keep in mind. OLED displays can burn in much more easily than LCD displays can, so you have to be careful. They even in the settings sort of hid the turn off auto brightness option because I think they want people to have auto brightness on because they don't want people running their screen at full brightness all the time because that might lead to more burn-in, and they're trying to avoid that. So you have to keep that in mind. You don't want to just leave static apps on screen for a long time, but that's normal for any OLED device. I don't notice much color shift at all really when you're viewing the screen off angle. Apparently that was a problem with the Google Pixel 2, I guess the XL screen, but I don't notice that much on this screen. It's just a really pretty crisp screen, and I really like how Apple really tries to stick with just very realistic colors. A lot of the Android phones, especially Samsung phones, they seem to go for kind of oversaturation and vibrancy, which I guess looks nice to some people, but especially when I'm taking photos or when I'm viewing content, I want it to look as natural as possible, and Apple really seems to have calibrated the screen for that. So I have no complaints about this screen at all. I think it's really, really pretty. And finally, Apple has joined the rest of the world with wireless charging. I just have a little Anker wireless charging pad here. You throw it on, it works. If you have a Qi standard wireless charger, it will work with the iPhone. Apparently Apple's going to release one that allows quicker charging. This is definitely slower than the provided USB wall plug that Apple gives you, but it's fine. I just have it on my night table, put my phone on there when I'm going to bed, and in the morning it's fully charged. Speaking of charge, I have noticed that the battery on this lasts perfectly fine, basically all day for me. Through a lot of heavy use, I do a lot of podcast listening, watch a lot of videos, use the camera quite a bit. So I usually have maybe 16 to 10% charge by the time I get home. Now, depending on what kind of wireless charger you have, it may or may not work with various cases, but this is one of the Apple leather cases. Works fine with this one. And then I also have this spec candy shell case, I think it's called, and it works just fine with that too. And that's a pretty thick case. So that is the iPhone X, and I've really been enjoying using it so far. I think for me, the size especially really fits in that nice Goldilocks sweet spot between the phones that are the size of the 6, the 7, the 8, and then the Plus models. The Plus models are just too big, but the 10, the screen size to body ratio, I think is pretty much perfect. And again, I have pretty big hands, so I'm able to manipulate everything one-handed. You may not be. But in terms of the new gestures, getting used to not having the home button and all that, I didn't find that there was much of a learning curve at all. And actually a lot of the new gestures, especially like going back home, I just find that to be really intuitive. You're just flicking it away, you're back on your home screen. The cameras seem really, really nice. I want to get more in depth with those in the future. Maybe I'll do a video on the various recording modes. You know, you can do 4K 24, 30, 60 frames a second, slow-mo in 240, the various still modes and everything. I'd like to get into that more. Maybe I'll do a video on that. The notch, it doesn't really bother me. I don't really find that I notice it that much. Again, your mileage may vary, but for me, I find this to be a really functional, really aesthetically pleasing phone, and for me, it's worth the price. That being said, there are a lot of nice smartphones out on the market in the Android ecosystem and other places. Some that would be cheaper than this, some that might give you maybe more features. It depends on what you think is important, but it's not really that much out of line for other flagship phones. I think the Samsung Galaxy Note 8 is around the same price for the same storage. So again, it's up to you. If you're an Apple person, if you've been in the iOS ecosystem, it probably makes sense for you to upgrade to the 10, especially if you have a phone that is maybe generation 6 or older. If you have a 7 or 7 Plus, it might not make as much sense for you to upgrade. So there you go. Thank you guys so much for watching this little review of the iPhone X. I've been your good friend Bradley. You've been the audience. This has been Stuff and Things. I'll see you later.